You know, there's something strange about the way we treat this whole thing called life. We wake up every morning like soldiers reporting for duty, anxious, rigid, already rehearsing our strategies for a battle no one remembers declaring. We plan, we rush, we check the time, as if somewhere there's a scoreboard keeping track of how well we're doing. And when things don't go our way, we panic as though we've just failed some invisible test we didn't know we were taking. It's a bit absurd when you look at it, isn't it? The universe infinite, mysterious, pulsing with creative chaos, and here we are, convinced that the most important thing we can do is perfect our to-do list. We treat existence like a final exam, terrified of making mistakes, desperate to get an A in being human. But tell me, have you ever noticed how children don't play that way? Watch a child at play for a few minutes. She's completely absorbed, running, laughing, inventing whole worlds with a stick and a patch of dirt. She's not calculating whether she's winning or losing. She's not worried about what comes next. She's just playing, fully, fiercely, freely. And then something curious happens to us. Somewhere between childhood and whatever this is, mortgages, resumes, self-improvement plans, we forget the simple secret that the child still knows. Life was never meant to be a competition. It was meant to be a game, but not the kind of game where you keep score. The kind where the only way to lose is to forget that you're playing. Imagine if you could see your own life that way, your job, your failures, your relationships, even your heartbreaks, not as punishments or prizes, but as moves on a vast, mysterious board. Imagine realizing that the point was never to win, but to dance with the pieces. Because maybe that's the great cosmic joke. The game was never serious, and the stakes were never real. The only real tragedy is forgetting to play. Today, I want to share with you 7 quiet shifts that change how you move through this strange and beautiful playground we call existence. Shifts that turn struggle into play and fear into freedom. So tell me, are you ready to stop surviving and start playing? You see, most of us move through life like pieces on a chessboard, pushed around by circumstance, convinced that the hand moving us belongs to fate, to luck, to someone or something outside ourselves. We identify with our role so completely that we forget the simplest truth. The one moving the piece is us. It's a bit like a man so immersed in a virtual reality game that he forgets he's wearing a headset. He cries when his avatar falls. He panics when it rains. He feels ashamed when he loses, all while sitting safely on his couch. And when someone taps his shoulder and says, "Hey, you can take the headset off," he gets angry. He thinks you're trying to ruin his life. That's how deeply we've bought into the illusion. We've mistaken the costume for the actor. You might say, but this is who I am. I'm a teacher, a father, a business owner, a failure, a dreamer. Those are just your avatars. They're real in the way stories are real, vivid, meaningful, emotional, but not ultimately true. The one who watches all of this unfold, the silent witness behind your thoughts and feelings, that's the player, the awareness behind the screen. When you realize this, something extraordinary happens. You stop being terrified of losing, because how can the player ever truly lose when every round, every roll, every story is just another form of play? You can die in the game 1,000 times, but you always respawn in awareness, untouched. I once met a man who had spent his whole life building an empire, skyscrapers, deals, achievements stacked like trophies. But when the market collapsed, so did his identity. He told me, "I don't know who I am without all of this." And I remember thinking, of course you don't. You've been playing the character for so long that you forgot the actor behind it. The tragedy wasn't his loss, it was his forgetfulness. Here's the twist. Awakening isn't about quitting the game or rejecting the world. It's about remembering who's holding the controller. When you know you're the player, you can still build, still strive, still love, but you do it with laughter in your chest instead of fear in your gut. So next time you catch yourself drowning in anxiety about what happens next, pause for a moment, breathe. Feel the awareness behind the worry. That quiet space isn't your weakness, it's you. Because once you remember that, you stop begging the world to move in your favor. you start realizing you were the one moving it all along. You know, one of the strangest addictions we've all inherited is the obsession with keeping score. From the moment we're old enough to hold a pencil, we are taught that life is a ledger, every grade, every compliment, every promotion neatly recorded in the book of Am I Enough Yet? We chase invisible points, hoping that one day, when the numbers are finally high enough, we'll earn permission to rest. But rest never comes, does it? Because the scoreboard keeps resetting. You reach one milestone and another appears bigger, shinier, slightly out of reach. It's like running on a treadmill that speeds up every time you start to catch your breath. And we call this progress. I once met a woman who had optimized her life to perfection, every morning ritualized, every hour planned, every metric tracked, productivity, health, mindfulness, even her joy was color-coded. But when I asked her when she felt most alive, she went quiet. I don't know, she said. I've been so busy improving my life, I forgot to live it. That's what happens when you mistake the map for the territory, the score for the song. You start believing that happiness is a number that can be earned, that peace is waiting for you just beyond the next achievement. But here's the secret every child knows and every adult forgets. Life doesn't reward you for finishing first. It rewards you for showing up to play. Think about music for a moment. You don't listen to a symphony just to hear the final note. You don't dance to arrive at a destination on the floor. The beauty is the movement, the swirling, the improvisation, the moments between the beats. But we've turned dancing into racing, and then we wonder why we're exhausted all the time. The universe has no scoreboard. There's no judge tallying your points, no cosmic referee declaring winners and losers. There's only experience, the sweet, messy, fleeting experience of being here. When you let go of the score, you start noticing the rhythm. You start moving with life instead of competing against it. And maybe that's the real mark of wisdom, not how much you've achieved, but how much you've noticed. The warmth of sunlight on your skin, the quiet pulse of your own breath, the laughter that erupts when you finally stop pretending to have it all under control. So try this. For one day, drop the scoreboard. Don't measure, don't optimize, don't compare. Just be. Let life unfold without demanding it add up to anything. You'll find that the less you count, the more you feel, and the more you feel, the more you realize you were never here to win, you were here to play. You see, most of our suffering doesn't come from what happens. It comes from the way we hold it. We grip life like a fist clenched around water, convinced that the tighter we squeeze, the safer we'll be. But have you noticed what happens when you try to hold on too hard? The water slips right through your fingers. We do this with everything, with relationships, with goals, with identities. We cling, we control, we strategize. We call it being responsible, but really it's fear wearing a suit. We're terrified that if we relax our grip, everything will fall apart. But what if letting go isn't the same as losing control? What if it's the only way to find real balance? I once watched a little boy building a sandcastle by the edge of the sea. He worked with total focus, shaping towers and moats with his small hands. Every wave crept closer, but he didn't flinch. When the tide finally rolled in and carried his creation away, he just laughed loud, delighted laughter, and started again. I remember thinking, that's it, that's how we're meant to live. Fully invested, but never imprisoned. The light touch isn't carelessness, it's clarity. It's knowing that you can give your whole heart to something without making your peace dependent on its outcome. It's the artist who paints without worrying if anyone will buy the painting, the lover who loves without demanding a promise, the seeker who walks without needing to arrive. Our culture glorifies gripping the grind, the hustle, the endless attempt to force results. But life isn't a screw to be tightened, it's a river to be moved with. The more you fight the current, the more it drags you under. The moment you relax, you float. Here's the twist. The light touch doesn't make you passive, it makes you powerful. Because power isn't the ability to control, it's the capacity to respond fluidly to whatever arises. The samurai doesn't strike harder, he moves cleaner. The dancer doesn't force the step, she listens to the rhythm. So when life wobbles, instead of clenching, soften. When plans crumble, instead of panicking, breathe. When things don't go your way, smile, because maybe the way is being rewritten. The light touch doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care beautifully. You give your all, but you let life have the final move. And somehow, when you stop trying to control everything, things begin to fall gently into place, not because you forced them to, but because you finally gave them space to. You know, we spend so much of our lives trying to avoid pain that we forget it's part of the design. We treat suffering like a glitch in the system, something that shouldn't be there, proof that something's gone wrong. But what if pain isn't punishment? What if it's training? Think of any game you've ever loved. The early levels are easy, you jump, you move, you learn the controls. But then comes the first real challenge, the first boss fight that tests everything you've learned. You might get frustrated, even want to quit, yet deep down, you know the challenge isn't against you, it's for you. It's what helps you grow, what turns you from a beginner into a master. Life works the same way. Pain is inevitable, it's part of the experience. But suffering, that's optional. Suffering begins when we argue with reality, when we add the sentence, this shouldn't be happening. Pain says, this hurts. Suffering says, this shouldn't hurt. And that resistance, that mental tug of war, multiplies the ache until it consumes us. I once spoke with a man whose wife had left him after 20 years. He was devastated, but what truly broke him wasn't her absence, it was his story about what it meant. I must have failed, he said. I'll never recover. My life is over. He didn't realize the game hadn't ended, it had simply switched level. The challenge wasn't to get her back, it was to meet himself for the first time without her shadow there to define him. Every difficulty carries a hidden invitation. Loss invites you to discover what remains when everything familiar is gone. Failure invites humility, illness invites presence, loneliness invites self-intimacy. The game isn't trying to destroy you, it's trying to wake you. There's a Zen saying, the obstacle is the path. At first it sounds cruel, but when you live long enough, you see the truth of it. Every heartbreak you've survived has shaped your compassion. Every mistake has sharpened your wisdom. Every fall has taught you something your victories never could. Here's the paradox. Once you stop fighting pain, it changes flavor. It becomes information, not condemnation. Like a fire that once burned, now warming you instead. You begin to see that nothing real can be lost, only illusion. So the next time you're caught in difficulty, try this. Instead of asking, why me? Ask, what is this teaching me? Shift from victim to student. Watch how even your suffering softens in that light. Because maybe life's challenge mode isn't there to break you. Maybe it's there to reveal the part of you that can't be broken. You see, most people treat life like a river. They're supposed to paddle upstream. Every goal becomes a current to conquer. Every setback a sign they're losing ground. They row harder, push faster, grit their teeth, and then wonder why they're exhausted. But what if life was never meant to be forced? What if the real mastery lies not in control, but in cooperation? Imagine a surfer trying to command the ocean. He yells at the waves, demanding they rise exactly when he wants them to. It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Yet that's how we behave with existence itself. We lecture the universe about timing, about fairness, about how things should unfold, and when the waves don't obey, we call it failure. But the wise surfer doesn't fight the sea. He studies it. He learns its rhythm, its moods, its language. And when the right wave comes, he moves with it, balanced, alert, effortless. That's what the ancient sages called wu-wei, not doing nothing, but doing what is perfectly aligned with what's already happening. I once knew a woman who spent years forcing her way through every decision, her career, her relationships, even her healing. She tried every technique, every manifestation ritual, every form of control disguised as spirituality. Nothing worked. Then one day, exhausted, she simply stopped. She stopped pushing, stopped chasing, stopped trying to make life bend to her will. And in that stillness, things began to move on their own. The job she had fought for years suddenly appeared. The relationship she'd been desperate to find came quietly, without effort. She hadn't manifested them, she had matched them. Flow doesn't mean passivity, it means intelligence. The river doesn't resist the rocks, it moves around them, patiently carving its path, until even stone yields. There's no strain in that movement, only trust in its own direction. You, too, have a current, a natural rhythm that's always guiding you, whispering where to turn, when to rest, when to rise. But you can't hear it while you're busy shouting instructions at the tide. The irony is that the more you surrender, the more effective you become. When you stop trying to control every variable, life begins to coordinate itself around your stillness. You make better decisions because you're not acting from panic. You attract the right people because you're not broadcasting resistance. You find the right timing because you're no longer rushing. Here's the twist. Surrender isn't defeat. It's participation in a greater intelligence than your own. It's saying, let me move with the music instead of insisting on my own beat. And once you do that, everything changes. The noise quiets. The struggle softens. The river carries you not away from yourself, but directly home. So the next time you feel the urge to force something, pause. Ask yourself, what would happen if I stopped fighting? You might be surprised to find that the moment you stop paddling so hard, the current doesn't drown you. It delivers you precisely where you were meant to go all along. You know, one of the hardest things to accept is that the people who annoy us the most are our greatest teachers. We love to believe we're separate, that the kind enlightened me is surrounded by difficult, unenlightened them. But life has a sense of humor. It keeps sending us versions of ourselves we refuse to see. Think about it. Every encounter you have is like a mirror. Some mirrors flatter, reflecting back your best qualities, patience, warmth, kindness. Others are harsher, showing you the parts you've been avoiding, jealousy, control, insecurity, fear. And when that happens, our first instinct is to smash the mirror. You're toxic, we say. You're the problem. But no matter how many mirrors you break, the reflection follows you, because the image isn't out there, it's in you. I once met a man who complained constantly about how manipulative his co-workers were. They twist everything, he said. They always have an angle. After listening for a while, I asked him gently, do you ever find yourself doing that, shaping situations to your advantage? He paused, then laughed nervously. Maybe, he said, but only when I have to. That's the trick, isn't it? We condemn in others what we've secretly justified in ourselves. Life plays this little game not to shame us, but to integrate us, to show us where we've split off from our own wholeness. When you start seeing others as mirrors rather than enemies, something incredible happens. Compassion arises, not the soft, sentimental kind, but the clear-eyed compassion that comes from recognition. You realize that everyone, even the people who hurt you, are playing their parts in your awakening. The rude stranger, the demanding boss, the critical parent, each is a different mask worn by the same consciousness, nudging you toward understanding. It's as if existence were an infinite theater, and you are both the audience and the cast. The friend who supports you is one of your lines. The lover who leaves is another. The villain, the hero, the chorus, all you, exploring what it means to be everything. And when you see that, the need to judge softens. You no longer demand that people behave a certain way so you can stay comfortable. You start watching their performances with curiosity instead of resentment. Here's the paradox. When you stop trying to fix people, you begin to understand them. When you stop labeling them, you begin to see their depth. And the more deeply you see others, the more deeply you recognize yourself. So, next time someone triggers you, instead of reacting, pause. Ask quietly, what is this person showing me about myself? You'll be amazed how quickly conflict turns into revelation. Because in this great cosmic game, there's only one player wearing 1,000,000 masks, pretending to forget. And each time you recognize another face as your own, the illusion thins a little more, and the play becomes a little more divine. You see, we've been taught to think of life as a linear story, a clear beginning, a middle full of struggles, and an ending that arrives like the closing credits of a movie. We even talk about getting somewhere, as if existence were a destination. But the universe doesn't move in straight lines. It moves in circles, spirals, waves. Nothing ever truly ends it, only changes form. Look around you. The tree that falls becomes soil for another seed. The sun that sets tonight will rise again tomorrow in another sky. Even the breath you exhale becomes part of the air someone else inhales. Everything is recycling itself in an endless loop of transformation. Why would your life, your consciousness be any different? We fear endings because we mistake form for being. When something disappears, we think it's gone. But what if it's just changing shape? The caterpillar doesn't die, it dissolves. The wave doesn't vanish, it returns to the ocean. And what you call death may just be another costume, change in the great cosmic play. I remember visiting a hospice once, sitting beside a woman who was days from passing. She looked at me and smiled softly. "It's funny," she said. "I thought this was the end, but it feels more like moving houses." Her words stayed with me. That calm acceptance, not resignation, but recognition that even this final scene was just another doorway. The truth is, there's no final level, no finish line, where you win the game and retire. The game isn't about completion, it's about expansion. Each phase of your life, each joy and heartbreak, each success and loss, is just another level revealing what you're capable of being. And when one level ends, another begins, often disguised as a mess, a failure, or a goodbye. The player, the awareness behind it all, never disappears. You've been playing for lifetimes, in countless forms, exploring every possible role the universe can imagine. Sometimes as the hero, sometimes as the fool, sometimes as the quiet observer sitting in the back row, but always, always as consciousness experiencing itself through different masks. Here's the twist. Once you realize the game never ends, the pressure melts away. You stop racing against time. You stop hoarding moments like a miser counting coins. You start living in rhythm with the eternal, fully present, but never desperate to hold on. Because how can you cling to something that's never truly leaving? And so, the next time life changes shape, when something ends, when someone leaves, when the chapter closes, remember, you're not losing, you're leveling up. The scenery is shifting, the role is changing, but the player remains untouched. You've never fallen out of the game. You've only entered a new round of remembering who you are. The wave returns to the ocean. The actor steps off the stage. The dreamer wakes, and yet the play continues. Always has, always will. Because consciousness never dies. It simply changes costume and whispers, "All right then, let's play again." And so here we are, at the end of this little journey, though of course there was never really an end, was there? Only another pause between breaths, another curtain closing before the next act begins. We've wandered through the rules and illusions of this strange, luminous game, remembering that we're the players, not the pieces, that the score was never real, that the secret to mastery was never control, but the light touch of trust. If you've felt tired of playing lately, tired of trying to win, to prove, to perfect, let this be your permission to rest, to laugh, to see through the seriousness of it all. Because the moment you stop demanding that life make sense, it starts to sing again. The music never stopped. You'd only been reading the notes instead of dancing. The truth is simple and astonishing. You were never losing. You were learning. You were never broken. You were waking up. Every fall, every heartbreak, every wrong turn was just another lesson in remembering what you've always been, awareness itself. Untouched, unruined, infinitely free. You don't have to fix yourself to play beautifully. You only have to remember that this is play. The joy was never at the finish line. It's in the next breath, the next step, the next curious glance at the mystery unfolding before you. So here's my invitation, gentle but daring. Today, choose one thing to let go of, one story, one fear, one rule you've been gripping like it defined you. Let it slip away and notice what rushes in to take its place. Probably something lighter, maybe even laughter, because the door was never locked. The game was never serious. You were never trapped. You were simply learning how to move again, how to dance with existence instead of fighting it. And when you step through that door, when you finally stop surviving and start playing, you will realize something miraculous. You were never just a character trying to win. You were the entire game, dreaming itself awake. The curtain doesn't fall here. It only waves. And beyond it, life whispers softly, your turn.